Hello and a very good evening, and you're welcome to this week's episode of Taking Care of Business. I'm Ronan Berry, this is Midlands 103. To begin this evening, we're going to talk all things robotics, STEM, science, technology, engineering, and we know that over the last number of years there's been a huge emphasis put on the STEM subjects. We've known for quite a while there aren't enough of our young people studying those subjects in primary school, certainly at secondary school level, and therefore following through into third level. But much has improved over the last while. If you mention robots, we think of VEX and think of the success that many Midlands counties had in the recent national VEX competitions and even as far as the Worlds in Dallas. So, huge change, huge things being made. This doesn't all happen by chance. So Seanie Morris, who is the STEM Engagement Officer with Laois County Council, is sitting in front of me in the studio, as is Vexy, I believe her name is, a VEX robot. We'll talk more about her in a few minutes. But to try and get some background and context as to how the Midlands, the four counties of Longford, Laois, Offaly and Westmeath, are the only four counties in the country to appoint STEM engagement officers. That had to be the brainchild of somebody or some grouping. And of course, all these things need a little bit of time and also a little bit of money. Well, I'm delighted to be joined now by Antoinette Brennan. And Antoinette is the Broadband Officer at Laois County Council. Very good evening, Antoinette.
Good evening, Ronan. How are you?
Antoinette, we're seeing there is that even in the robotics side of things, we're seeing the products, the output from appointing things like STEM engagement officers across the four counties. From your perspective in Laois, how did it first come about and what are the funding mechanisms in place that are helping drive these programmes?
Hi, Ronan, I suppose, back in, it all stemmed, I suppose, as part of the National Broadband Plan through NBI, and the Broadband officers was a single point of location in each county council, so there was a Broadband officer appointed in all county councils across the entire country, and I was the Broadband officer appointed in Laois. So I suppose that in the early days it was all about rolling out the infrastructure and getting everybody up for the future of digitalisation. And then I suppose when that was being rolled out and almost successfully rolled out, we've 92% of it rolled out in Laois now, so we'll be fully rolled out by the end of this year, early next year. So I suppose then the next question was, how do we utilise it and how do we use it going forward? And especially with the whole, as you alluded to there yourself in the beginning, STEM programs and STEM engagement and computer science is to the fore now as we go forward into the future. So I suppose it was really different discussions between different broadband officers on how can we go forward with everything now, and the four broadband officers in the Midlands, I suppose underneath the Midlands Regional Enterprise Plan, came together, and Offaly, I suppose, were probably the lead on it at the time, because Ray Bell, as you know there yourself, is the broadband officer there in Offaly County Council. They actually had a STEM engagement officer employed previous to us even looking for it in the four Midlands County, and we could see the benefits that was being reaped in Offaly, I suppose, with relation to rolling out the as you said, the VEX robotics was one of the big things through all the schools, and the interaction there between, I suppose, the triple helix between education and local authority and looking to the future of employment. So that, I suppose, where it really stemmed from in the beginning, and I'd say Christine Collins, then the Longford broadband officer, and Jerry McCormack in Westmeath, we kind of came together with a plan and went to the Midlands Ireland, and kind of decided, look, we can make this happen if we had a STEM officer in all four counties. So I suppose that's kind of then went, I suppose we were lucky then. The Just Transition funding was available, so the STEM engagement officers then, luckily enough, were employed under that fund, and the four STEM engagement officers being in Offaly, Siobhan in Longford, Kelly in Westmeath, and Seanie, that's with you there yourself, here in Laois. And they are the driving force now, I suppose, behind what we're doing in relation to being able to provide STEM programs in all schools and in communities, the wider communities, in the 4 local authorities.
Yeah,
and they all work, I suppose, independently, but they work as a group as well. And the network, the group, the fact that we're working as a network really is helping going forward for the Midlands.
Well, we better bring the aforementioned Seanie Morris into the conversation. Seanie, STEM Engagement Officer in County Laois, and people will know you well and a familiar face, particularly from the VEX robotics competitions over the years. Seanie, in your own role, I suppose, you can speak a lot about VEX, but I'm sure there's much more to it than just the VEX when it comes to the STEM subjects. You've basically created though a new programme because you've looked at the schools that are participating in the likes of the VEX robotics competitions and the students that are engaging in the STEM subjects. You've taken it a step further now because you realise there's a kind of an area, there's certain types of students maybe who were missing out on the opportunity. Take us through the latest thing that you've been working on.
Well, what we've been fortunate to do is to bring this project to many schools across Laois, notwithstanding, of course, Offaly, Longford and Westmeath doing it as well. At the moment, we have 20 primary schools and all 10 secondary schools in County Laois are now equipped with these VEX IQ kits. But it goes beyond that as well. As you know, I love astronomy, and bringing that in to as one of my little skill sets, or making rockets, we thought, what could we do that's kind of a little bit outside the norm of mainstream classroom education and target kids that might be in ASD units or neurodivergent and bring them into the equation.
And your own background, you've actually qualified last year as an SNA, so you're well prepped for this too, as well as the astronomy background, the interest in STEM. This is kind of aligning up nicely for you. When it came to creating this programme that you're going to deliver in schools, how did the idea first come and how did you go about actually making it a reality?
Antoinette and I kind of put our heads together to see, apart from just doing the normal VEX IQ robotics program, what else could we do? And we came up with an idea that, well, why not do something with autistic children? Because having my experience as a special needs assistant, I love working with those kind of kids. They are special in their own special way and sometimes don't get to be included with mainstream kids because of their needs. We could do something where we can tailor a specific program to get them involved, get them in the touchy-feely area of science and engineering. So we put together a program that over 3 weeks started off as a pilot in Ballyadams National School, St. Joseph's School in Ballyadams. And we said, week 1, let's do the robotics, because they've all heard of that. The school already has a kit. Week 2, let's bring in some astronomy. We brought in a telescope and we brought eyepieces to which they could see picture cards across the schoolyard of the planets. It had meteorites that they could handle and touch. And then week 3, we brought in the materials that every child was able to make a paper rocket and use chemistry to actually pop launch them off the tables in the room. They physically were doing it with themselves and their SNAs. Some are non-verbal. Some need a little extra help. Others, they're so excited and you can't hold them down enough to try and just, be a little bit patient and, wait for the rest of them to catch up. But that was the beauty about it. Just let the kids be themselves, and giving them this taste of science and tech and astronomy. It was beautiful. It worked very, very well. And we aimed this towards World Autism Appreciation Day, which was April 2nd, which on that day in the school, we did a showcase. Their parents were brought in. Some of the other school kids were brought in to see what the autistic kids were able to do and have fun with. And they even imparted their knowledge of what they learned onto the other kids and their parents. So it became inclusive, and they had their moment. It was stunning to be able to do.
But clearly you identified something that you could build upon then, because this is I know this Friday is your council day. It's kind of a national initiative too that allows our local authorities to promote work they're doing maybe that sometimes gets unseen or unheard. But this story in particular, the fact that you're running these workshops for kids with ASD, really, it's actually after catching national attention since I first even reached out to you yesterday.
Yes, surprising to myself and the team in Laois County Council and the Midlands team in general was someone saw it and reached out and asked questions. I gave them the answers, showed them some photographs. And then they said, for your council day, we want to run this as a feature. And we were, yeah, please, let everyone see what could be done. And then the little trickles came out in the media Sunday night, yesterday, and even today. The tabloids, the Mirror, the Star, and the Who else did we have? The Irish Independent today, and it was even in print in some of the papers. And we're like, this is amazing. But for many, many people who are out there that may have a child with special educational needs, they've been contacting us, asking, are you going to come to Clare? Will you come down to Wexford?
Well, clearly you're creating a template that can be worked on.
Yes.
And I think, again, we have to allude back to the work that was done by the councils to create the broadband officer roles, the STEM engagement officer, and we already see the output it's having. Because there's a bigger piece to this too. We speak about industry, about sectors, particularly in a world that's very tech-driven, very process-driven. There's a talent pool that, let's be honest, maybe has not been tapped into before, and to just give any kid the opportunity to see possibility. There must be a huge sense of satisfaction in seeing that, and it's hard to know what you might be unlocking here.
True. If I was to share a little statistic where nearly 35% of adults in County Laois, they leave the county for work every morning. Some are travelling to Cork and Limerick and Dublin for work, having an hour and a half travel each way. That's not sustainable. That's not good. It's you want to be able to enjoy your work. We've worked with and liaised with businesses in Laois to see what it is that they are looking for. Like, where now there are jobs that can't be filled because that talent pool isn't broad enough. Now we can go to the schools and get kids interested in STEM, where they'll become coders and engineers, designers, robotics makers. And know that by the time, if we can get some of them to stay through school with those fields and enter into an apprenticeship or a third level course, get their qualification, they will be literally guaranteed a job in Laois and Westmeath, Longford and Offaly that they won't have to travel far for, and they'll really enjoy it, and they will be able to stay in their communities, especially in rural communities. And
I think we've learned a huge amount from COVID as well. I'll bring Antoinette Brennan back in just for a final word on that. Again, like Seanie paints a very positive picture of what County Laois and the Midlands counties might look like in future if we can tap into that talent pool and provide the facilities for them to work in their home counties, in their own homes even.
Yeah, absolutely, and I suppose that's our end goal. At the end of the day, it's sustainability, and it's just trying to drive on the economic development within our own county and indeed in the Midlands, Ronan. And you don't have to. The gone are the days that you think you have to go to Dublin for the jobs or wherever else. We actually have those huge businesses on our doorsteps. Last year we had a brilliant week there. We called it Dream Big, and we brought TY students from across the county, almost 30 students to industries. Here even in Portlaoise, the like of Midlands Steel, CJ Shears, huge employers and huge, really up there with robots making pallets or robots building steel frames or whatever. And to listen to those people, they started off at the apprentice stage, and now they're MDs of companies. There's no barriers anymore for anybody that wants to get on in life in the Midlands region. And I suppose we're the stepping stone at the minute, and the whole part of the inclusion. And you spoke there about the ASD units and whatever else. Those people are going to be important to us in the future as well, and we don't want to leave anyone behind. And we're building that bridge now, and we also have an association with TUS in Athlone there that you do your primary school, secondary school, hopefully, and we're also engaging with schools to teach computer science for Leaving Cert students, and next year we're also bringing in a TY program that computer science is now going to be on the curriculum for TY. So the students can make their decision then at the end of their TY year. Yes, I want to do computer science because I now know where I want to go, and I now know what's behind the four walls of that big blue factory up there, or that different factory up there that we drove by that's in the industrial estate, but we didn't really know what was there.
It's lovely to see that linkage happening, between academia, the industries,
Absolutely.
The council, the schools, because
and I think
there's no point providing services if the companies aren't there to give employment. We know they're there, and that linkage is huge. Antoinette, it's a credit to all involved, and Seanie has kind of tipped on. I think your phones be ringing from all across the country looking for more information. But for now, Antoinette Brennan, Broadband Officer County Laois County Council, thank you for that this evening. Seanie, we haven't much time to talk about Vexie in front of us anyway. We'll come back to her again. But as I say, fascinating story, and it kind of shows too that your council day Good idea, because it's getting huge profile on what you've created, and it certainly sounds like it's only beginning. Seanie, thank you so much for coming in this evening.
Ronan, really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
That's all. And of course to Vexy too. You can check out her videos later on. You'll see Vexy, who's been sitting very patiently in between myself and Seanie.